Our next guest has quite the eclectic journey. From being on track to becoming a professional golf player, to being on track to making more money than he can count, he realized something was always missing. The majority of this episode was spent reflecting on that journey. From Ashtanga Yoga in Crestone, Colorado, to learning osteopathic medicine and martial arts in Manipur, Phil is back home. He's put together a program. I did a training session with him, and I'm looking forward to more. But he reminds us how we've allowed our thinking minds to overrun our lives. At the core of it, we're human beings. So be. Please enjoy my conversation with Phil Hurley. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Consciously Curious, where we deep dive with those that are killing it in their passion. On tonight's episode, Phil Hurley, teacher, practitioner. We just had an amazing session earlier today. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
And teacher just doesn't cut it. I was introduced to you by Jason Chan, and more of like a healer. And we're slowly finding our way with the verbiage around it. But it's kind of like an amalgamation of yoga, breathwork, martial arts. It was very holistic, and I know people throw that word around as well. But we hope to do our best to do you justice, to do the teaching justice.
I appreciate it.
So welcome to the show. How we doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I appreciate your time. It was nice to train you this morning.
Yeah.
And it was a good session.
It was like a workout.
Yeah.
Like we said off camera, I'm still sore.
Good. Tomorrow should be even more fun, and possibly the next day.
And to paint a picture, to give people an idea of who and what Phil Hurley is.
Mm-hmm.
How did we get here, right? So let's rewind it a little bit. Did you think you would do anything like this growing up?
No, growing up, I had a pretty clear path. I was going to be a golf professional.
That's in and of itself badass, by the way.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And you were good at it.
I was very good at it. Yeah. My father's a golf professional, and so from a young age, that was it. That's all I wanted to be, and I had the chops to do it. I was, pretty good player when I was young, and pretty good high school player, and placed well in junior tournaments around the country, national tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
and then accepted a scholarship to University of New Mexico and top 20 Division I team.
Okay.
And so that was it. There was no question. I was going to be a golf professional.
And how far into college?
Not far.
You didn't make it that
No, not far. 1 year, and I just caught a bigger glimpse of the world.
Yeah. Was
You
it a
know?
certain class? Was it a certain professor? Student? Peer? What was it?
It might have been mushrooms.
Oh. I'm still waiting for my... I'm not actively seeking, but it comes across my area. I'm like, okay. Well.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, but it was a lot of just mind-expanding experiences, just getting out there on my own.
Yeah.
And getting a bigger taste of the world, a different part of the country. I'm from Minneapolis.
Oh.
I was, going to school in Albuquerque.
Okay.
And just exposed to different things, and kind of was burnt out a little bit on playing golf. It wasn't fun anymore. And went home. I was, after my freshman year, and I got mono my freshman year and different things like that. So it wasn't all roses, but yeah, when it came time for me to go back for my sophomore year, my heart wasn't in it. And I've always been pretty good at following my heart, even when others are.
So you had external forces like maybe your parents or other people that are like, no, you got to stick with this. How many people can say they got a golf scholarship?
Well, yeah, and even internal, I'm like, well, any kind of a scholarship is pretty good.
Yeah.
Free college education.
Right.
But I'm one of those people where school felt more like a prison to me.
Okay.
It's not an environment I thrived in. And I knew when it was time for me to go back. I didn't make the decision until literally right before it was time for me to go back for my sophomore year. I played very well in amateur tournaments and everything that summer.
Mm-hmm.
Had friends from college come up and visit, or one good friend of mine, and was all set to go back. And then I just couldn't do it. I knew.
So you dropped out, or you like explored other things?
Dropped out of college,
Yeah.
called the coach, not coming back.
Oh.
I'm done.
Oh.
Yeah. Had to tell my father, who's a golf professional, and then invested
I'm sure.
years and years and years in my development. Had to tell him that I wasn't going back. And, but I knew that I couldn't do it. I mean, that's one thing I've been, pretty good at, is following my heart.
Okay.
And walking away from things where some people might look at it as quitting. But I knew
It was time.
that it was time. It wasn't for me, and I needed to go see.
Okay. And at that point, did you know what else you wanted to do, or it was more of an exploratory phase?
Very much exploratory.
Okay.
I grew up in the suburbs of Minneapolis.
Okay.
Had a very, idyllic childhood in a lot of ways. Not perfect. Nobody does. But, compared to a lot of other people and their upbringing and the issues that they go through, it was suburbia.
So
right?
what did you do to kind of taste test and get your feet wet in different things? Like, did you have an idea of what you might have wanted to do?
So, growing up in the suburbs, I always I craved excitement and felt like I was kind of bored and things like that. So, I know exactly what I did. I went down to downtown Minneapolis, and I applied at about 45 restaurants, bars, nightclubs.
Oh, cool.
I thought downtown Minneapolis was, Gotham City. It was a big town, which it's a great town. But that was new and exciting for me. And so I went into a nightclub, or many of them, like I said, but the specific nightclub was brought in, and they said, "Have you ever had any experience bouncing?" I said, "Oh, absolutely."
Were you this tall back then too?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I was, but weighed 175 pounds, no experience with any bouncing whatsoever, and told them a good story and got hired.
Oh.
And so worked at that nightclub for a while, and that's actually what brought me to Chicago. Is they had other clubs under the management company, and so I lived the life down there. It was a brand new life. I'm hanging out with, I've always kind of hung out with people that are older than me, but wow, a different fast crowd. Like, it was kind of what I needed, and learning a different aspect of people and how to deal with people and make your way in a whole different world that was very foreign, obviously, to my upbringing and any sort of environment I had ever been in, but it's really what I wanted. It was a very exciting time in my life.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was.
And
great.
And that's how you met Jason.
So I met Channy. Yeah, that's how I met Channy. So I moved down to Chicago and opened a club here with that company, and got into, and then things moved to a whole nother level of excitement. I was 20 years old or whatever, moving to Chicago,
right,
and tapped into the nightlife and the social scene of this fantastic city.
It's exclusive. You felt like you're in. You get to say who gets in, who gets
all of that, and then all the other people at all the other establishments that are, and the nightlife is a big part of the city. And it's not just for kids. 55, 60-year-olds are out enjoying themselves in this town. Staying out till 4 or 5 in the morning. Sometimes this is a very social city that likes to party. And I think they do it very well. And so I was tapped into that whole life, immediately. And I remember just walking down Oak Street, Michigan Avenue and everything, just feeling the energy of this city, which I still feel whenever I come back here.
Right.
It's fantastic. And I was lit. We'll talk about the human spirit, but my spirit was truly lit. It was on fire. And that's what I needed. And that was my college.
Okay.
That was my university. I'm learning how to deal with all these different situations, and I started managing and managing, a couple hundred people at age 21.
Wow.
And managing a lot of money, and moved up very, very quickly, where most of my colleagues were 30, 35, 40, things like that.
Yeah.
And I was 21 years old, 22 years old, and, had some positions of responsibility, which I think to this day I handled pretty well. And then actually moved with this company. I got a little fried. You can only go to sleep at 7:00 for so long. I felt.
Yeah. That was my next question. It's like, how sustainable was it?
Yeah, I had to retire when I was 23. But then they called me back and said, we're opening up a club in Athens, Greece, and we want you to run it.
What?
Yeah, and I again, I'm 23 years old. Like, yeah, okay, I can do that.
Nothing's holding you back.
Nothing's holding me back. And so I went over there, and I became a traveling manager. Lived in Acapulco, Mexico for a while.
Wow.
And then was a victim, I think, of my own success in that I had to go fix a situation in a club in Philadelphia in January. So I got to move from a really nice villa and a great resort up on the hill in Acapulco to South Philly in January.
Wow.
So that was...
Yeah, that's rough.
It was a little rough, but, again, a great experience. And then was going to manage a club in New York City.
Oh, wow.
Went to New York City, and I was there as we were setting up, and I can't do this anymore. I think I was the ripe old age of maybe still 23 or 24 years old, and just had to retire. I was a little fried.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And what were you seeking next? And if you didn't know, what did you do to find out?
Yeah, I didn't know. I came back to Chicago, and
'Cause I'm sure you had a network. Like, you built a network of people that knew you outside at the clubs.
I did, and had some opportunities. I wouldn't say burn bridges, but wanted something new. I didn't want to be involved. I mean, a lot of that network was still.
But what about the guests that came through the nightlife?
Oh yeah, it was
right, regulars. Like, you got to know people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of professional athletes and rock bands, and if Metallica or Guns N' Roses was in town, I was one of the guys they were calling to help them out. So I did, but I didn't tap into that. I think I came back here, and quite honestly had a little too much fun for some years, and really drifted around. I was a partner. I have a good friend still who was in the insurance brokerage business, and he had an office in LA and wanted to open a satellite office here. And so we did that, and he taught me and a good friend, the insurance business. And I think I did that for 18 months or 2 years, but it wasn't me. So those last years here in Chicago is probably too much partying. And although, I mean, it's easy to have too much fun in this town. And probably just kind of drifted around for a little bit. And I'd take a couple months off. In the summer, I had a painting design company with a friend. We did faux finishes and, high-end painting. And he taught me how to do that stuff. He's a very good artist, but didn't know how to run a business. Okay. And I had a sense for that. So we partnered up here in Chicago doing that. Again, kind of a stepping stone, not my passion, but...
you needed something.
Yeah. And so I'd take a couple months off every year, and I go out to Colorado, and I started climbing mountains. Okay. And doing a lot of that sort of thing on the big mountains out there, and big for the United States, 14, they call them 14ers, 14,000 foot mountains. Okay.
Yeah, that is big.
Yeah. Yeah. So started doing a lot of that, and met some friends through friends here in Chicago that are still very dear to me, that introduced me to Colorado and mountaineering and things like that. And so actually, when I was out there in Colorado, got a part in a very small movie, just out of the blue. They were doing a call for extras. Okay. And I said, okay, I'll go over there. And they took my picture, and they said, why don't you read a couple lines? We might have a part for you. And I read a couple lines and got one of the main characters, and the movie never even was finished,
what?
right?
What?
Yeah, it never got finished. It was a micro budget movie.
Okay.
But it exposed me, it was more tasting. It was more tasting.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what I wanted to experience.
Right.
Fill in the blank afterwards. It didn't really matter exactly what. I didn't have a clear picture of, at that point, of exactly what I wanted to be doing.
Was that unsettling at that time? Or you were just rolling with it?
It was pretty exciting. My latter years here in Chicago, I think, was a little unsettling because I think things got a little stale. Like I said, I was partying a little too much, having a little too much fun. But the nice thing is, all those friends that I had then, for the most part, I still have. It wasn't a false group around me.
Right.
Those are real friends, people that I still love to this day, Channy being one of them.
Okay.
But a lot of people in this town, and now some are scattered around the United States, but that's a family, a part of my family.
Yeah.
People I hold very dear to me to this day. And so it wasn't like it was wasted, but it was a little unsettling in that I was drifting a little bit.
Yeah.
But and always looking for that thing that, your passion.
Thing.
Yeah. Because I knew I had a lot to offer in some way, but I didn't know what the heck that was. And so I got that little part in the movie, and I'm sure my acting was horrendous, but I had a lot of fun. And I knew it was also time to leave, so I came back and packed up. About a year later, I got a construction job just to make money. I knew I could make, 30 or $32, whatever it was, an hour, and have a good job. And in so many months, I'm going to have the cash to move to Los Angeles.
Oh.
And so I did.
Wait, is this to do the acting thing, or?
Yeah, I tried for a little bit.
Okay.
Yep. I'm going to move out there. But my friend who we opened that insurance brokerage firm with, he was living out there. I had been out there, multiple times.
Okay.
I'd been out there when I was a kid a couple times, spring break from Minnesota, going out there to play golf and kind of get ready for the golf season when it's still frigid in Minnesota. And I knew California. I actually lied to a girlfriend, I think in 8th grade, and she wanted to break up with me, and I made some flippant comment. Well, we're moving to California anyway. Complete BS. Complete lie. Right? And unfortunately, her mom was a real estate agent, and I remember this. We're sitting at the dinner table with the family. The phone rings, and my mom or dad pick it up. Oh, hello, Mrs. Dennison. What? Phil said what? She wanted to list our house for sale. So I'm sitting at the dinner table, and my mom said, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Dennison." And I immediately just went like this.
Oh, she knows.
Yeah. And she goes, "No, we're not moving to California." I don't know why he would say that. And she's looking at me like this while she's on the phone. So going to school the next day was fun. But, I always knew I wanted to go to California anyway. So I moved out there, tried acting a little bit. Again, I enjoyed acting. I didn't enjoy, even though I just dipped my toe into it, the business side of that, and I'm like, nah, this isn't for me either.
Even if you're not in that industry, I just hear kind of a weird vibe in LA. It's just It's like a who you know, and people are just trying to find out how they can level up through you. Like, who do you know that I can use to like get to the next level? And it's just like, ugh.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot. It's funny. People talk about the LA vibe and the people in LA, and it's more the people that move there to make their dreams come true. And of course, we're generalizing here. It's not everybody. But the Angelinos and the people that were born there and everything.
Yeah, they're cool.
Oh, yeah. That's the California vibe. Because LA and California are two separate things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people that have moved there, I mean, obviously that's a very tough industry to break through in and excel in. And so to a certain extent, like a lot of other industries, sure, people will step right on your head to climb over you.
Right.
You know, but that's around in a lot of places. But yeah, it's maybe a little more out in the open in LA and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I spent a lot of time there, and a lot of the reason I moved there is I like to be outside. I like to be active, doing things, and in being in Chicago, and even when I was growing up in Minnesota, I knew, you know, that cold weather is not for me, winter's not for me, and it just suspends the activities that I like to do for 6 months out of the year. And so I wanted to move there for multiple reasons. It wasn't just for acting. I think that was almost an excuse.
Okay. So were you willing to do whatever to make it work?
I certainly was. And I moved out there and I took the skills I had learned painting and just doing that sort of work and started my own little business out there again.
Okay.
Just a shoebox company, you know. And again, had some friends out there already. And so started doing that. And then my friend who owned the insurance brokerage firm had moved on and sold his business and become a partner of really one of the finest companies around, the largest privately held insurance broker in the world, and a company that really excelled at, and still does, I'm sure, at what they do. And so he was a partner of that company, and I started making cold calls for him and helping him bring in business. And he, at that time, also decided, you know, I see how much business is done on the golf course. He's a surfer. And he goes, I need to learn how to play this game. And you just happen to arrive at this time when I'm going to do this. So I would love it if you teach me how to play this game, but then also come with me out on the golf course.
That's so cool.
With clients.
Yeah.
And so I got to spend a lot of time, you know, with his clients, and he joined a really nice, fantastic club there in LA. So spent a lot of time there, and I was helping him bring business on board. And
you said you're definitely a people person at this point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
everything led to that, you know. It's just like it leads to where we are.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I had the tools, you know, being able to blend in with a lot of different type of people and be comfortable.
Yeah.
Around people in positions of power,
yeah.
presidents and CEOs of corporations and all different kinds of people. And so spent time doing that. And then kind of transitioned out of doing those things. I was a business development manager for a film magazine for a while. So I got to go to Sundance Film Festival and things like that. That company wasn't so strong, so didn't really stick with them. But what eventually happened is my buddy, who's a partner of that insurance brokerage firm, kind of suggested, and also I would play with some of the other partners and started playing with some of their clients because they would see me hit the golf ball and
they're like, how did you do that?
Yeah, wow. You know, it's an attractant or whatever word you want to use. And so it was good for them. Their clients like to play with me, and I kind of got into that world, and I saw the lifestyle that these guys were living, making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they work their butt off. I don't ever want to say that they don't, but, you know, you're spending a fair amount of time, or at least some of them are, on the golf course. Mm-hmm. You know, the firm had a couple suites at the Staples Center, so you're going to Lakers games, Clippers games, you know, out to dinners 5 nights a week.
And that's work.
It's all work.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like wow, yeah. This looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they ended up saying, well, you know, have you thought about coming on board as a partner? And I'm like, well, you know, my insurance background is that of a year and a half at a much smaller place. And you know, they have I think a pretty good formula for the most part is, you know, well, we can teach you the insurance business.
That's exactly what Jason said with anything. It's just like, because I asked him, how do you interview people? And it's just like, it's a gut feeling. And it's soft skills. It's like he just meets them one-on-one, and if he has a good feeling about it, and you can't teach. It's hard to teach that.
Yeah.
But you can teach the technical things.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's the outlook and the strategy that they take a lot of times. So they'll take top performers and a lot of other sales, because it's a sales job at the end of the day, sales and service. But they'll take top performers in a lot of different industries, a lot of commercial real estate guys, men and women. I don't mean guys, but and they said, well, you have all the other intangible skills, to do this job and lead different teams. And you don't really need to know the real technical stuff, because we've got a team, depending on if you're going after business in the construction industry, food service, whatever industry, we've got teams that are going to handle the technical things for you. We need you to be that people person, the relationship person, and cultivate those relationships. And you've got all those skills.
Did you feel like you just skipped, like you didn't earn it, or like you feel like maybe earn it like in that company, in that space, but like, I mean, you cultivated these skills like in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So I wonder if anyone was like bent out of shape, like, who the hell is this guy that just like skipped everything?
Well, what they don't usually do, see, the skill sets for a partner and the associates are so very different.
Yeah.
Their model has been, they don't really take associates, employees, and promote them to partner.
Yeah.
They're very exclusive about who becomes a partner of that, because you are a partner of that company. And those skill sets, putting it on the line in front of at a board meeting in front of 15 people and leading the team is a very different skill set than, somebody that is
behind
working
the
in the
scenes.
service side of things. It's, it's kind of rarefied air to have all of the skill set, the entire skill set that you would need to become a partner.
I just wonder if any associates are like, they had that in their mind of like, oh, one day.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. I think things are pretty.
Or if they prefer, they're so self-aware, like, no, I'd rather be doing this.
I know a lot of them that were like, I don't want that job, man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like, no thanks. Because it's not a job, it's not a career, it's a lifestyle. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
It's like being a politician. There's no weekends off. Now you might have time with your family and stuff, but they'll even go and they want to interview and spend time with your wife if you're married. I wasn't, but they want to make sure she's on board with this, because this is a complete lifestyle change. You don't put your at the time BlackBerry down. You're on vacation maybe,
but you're checking it.
Oh yeah. I mean, the stakes are high. You're the man or the woman, and there's really not a lot of time off.
Okay.
I remember one of the partners told me, so what's interesting is they invited me to come on board. And I thought about it for 6 months, because I knew deep down that wasn't me. But I'm also kind of struggling to find out what else I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this
that
position,
lifestyle, yeah.
And after probably 6 months, I'm like, all right, let's go through the process. So I think I had 17 interviews. So they asked me to come on board. The process went on for almost a year.
Oh.
16 or 17 interviews.
Oh, okay. So it was still a process. It wasn't like your partner.
No.
Oh, okay.
Just because a couple of those guys had an idea that I might be good.
Good for them. I think a lot of companies need more of a vetting process, because it's hard to get rid of someone.
Well, that's right.
Than hiring them.
Well, and I also think that they probably changed their vetting process after I quit after 3.5 or 4 years and resigned, because they invest a lot of money and time.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I probably knew deep down, because I had already been in the insurance business, albeit at a
and you didn't like
smaller level. I didn't like it. It's not, that sort of existence isn't me, and there's nothing wrong with it. I respect all of that, but I just knew it wasn't me. But you're looking at this and they're dangling that in front of you, and that lifestyle, and I think I took a golf trip or two, and you're on a private jet with 12 guys, whatever. Okay, this isn't bad. And I'm over here sucking eggs to make a living. living in a crappy little apartment in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
not the nice part of Hollywood. People think Hollywood's all glamour and everything. No. There's
pretty dirty.
syringes and everything. Yeah. Yeah, when you're walking your dog and stuff like that. And so I went for it and went through a very long process. And these aren't hour-long interviews. You know, this is you're really, they're looking at who you are. And I remember the CEO, he knew. I don't think he wanted to hire me.
Oh.
He knew I was more of a free spirit, and I think he wouldn't call it free spirit. He might call it undisciplined. But he looked at it and said, he didn't graduate from college. What does that tell me? It tells me that maybe he can't stick with it or whatever. And I have to say, for me being in that position, he was right.
Or just leaving the first insurance job.
Exactly. There was a lot of red flags, right? But all these guys liked me, and I had a lot of the tools to be very successful. And I actually hit my sales numbers, I think, all 4 years during some very tough times in that business. So I wasn't like I was a failure, but I felt like a fraud in here.
Yeah.
And I've never been motivated by money.
Never.
No.
That's interesting. And it's like, and you had it, and you had the experiences of like the finer things in life, and it's not it.
Yeah, well, I was about to have it. So their model is they don't really pay you a salary.
Oh.
It's you eat only what you kill, as they say. So it's 100% commission based.
Oh.
Yep, and then profit sharing, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the year, depending on the profitability of the office. And this is a company that had, I don't know, 120 offices in 60 countries. Okay. I mean, this is a global firm. They're the best in the world at what they do.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellence is their culture.
That's
throughout.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was a great experience for me too. Again, another company, because even the nightclub company that I worked with, they were excellent at what they did throughout, top to bottom. And so it was a fantastic experience in that way, to really see excellence, like I said, top to bottom. But I knew it wasn't me. I wasn't happy. I didn't give it my all. I tried to, but again, my heart wasn't in it. And as I said, I wasn't a complete failure. I hit all the numbers I was supposed to hit, my sales goals and everything. But I just knew when I had to go, it was killing me. And, I was drinking too much. You're out at these dinners, and it's part of...
That's culture.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't have to be. There was also partners there that never touched a drop. But for me, that's, you're out entertaining all the time.
Yeah.
Eating crappy food, things like that. And like, and again, the golf helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Became a member at a nice country club and all of this. But when I left, I walked away from it. Boom. One day I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm toxic inside, and I feel it. And so, I left. I was living in a townhouse in Beverly Hills, and I was about to make a lot of money. I was actually in debt still with the firm when I left, because they pay all your expenses, but then you pay them back out of your commissions. You don't get an expense account or nothing. So they put you through 6 months of training, which you get a draw every month. So I was making, I don't know, $5,000 or $7,000, whatever it was, but you accumulate this debt.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so even...
They'll get it back eventually.
Well, they get it back, and if you stay there for a while, after 3 years or 4 years, you pay it back, and then the commission levels are so high, then you start accumulating, and you're making a lot of money. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, big
it's
cash.
Fair. It's fair.
And I knew all of that going in.
Yeah.
And even though I was making on paper, maybe, whatever, couple $100,000 a year, my debts were bigger than that. So I was still just making my draw. But, the money, and I actually saw him like, the money is going to trap me, because I'm about to start
Like you get it. Okay.
killing it. And once,
Oh.
what if I would, start making $1 million, $2 million, $3-4 million a year? Then it's going to be very tough to walk away from.
Okay. I mean, do you think you would have just elevated your lifestyle then? Your cost of living and all that?
Of course I would have, but it would have been more distraction. Yeah, I would have bought shiny things.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to a bigger house, all of these little things to make myself feel better. But what would have been going on inside of here?
Yeah.
Still would have been a black hole, and it would have been bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I would have been, every year, it would have been worse.
Okay.
And I knew that, but then when you start making that kind of cash, I knew that was the hook. That was the trap. And for me, I knew there's no way I can have gone further. And again, there's a bunch of people that really love the competitiveness and those aspects of that sort of life. It just wasn't for me. So I'm not, casting shame, or that's not the right word, but, judging anybody else and their path. But I knew for me, I had to go. And when I went. And
this is when you got rid of your stuff?
No.
Oh, not yet.
Not yet. I moved up to Malibu in a little artist's studio, for like, I don't even remember what it was, $800 a month. It was a guest house on a 25-acre piece of property, like 2 miles from the beach.
Oh, nice.
In a beautiful canyon with a seasonal stream running through it. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. 400-year-old oak trees, right in the middle of Malibu.
Yeah.
And so I just went up there and pretty much smoked a bunch of weed for the next year, and was not a happy camper. I got stuck with a huge tax bill, when I left.
Oh.
And stuff like that. So when I left that firm,
yeah, because it still puts you in a weird in a top tier bracket then.
Yeah, there's big time tax implications when I left there. So there was a lot of unwinding, and boy, you feel like a failure. All of these other, everybody at the company hates me. All these people in relationships that I cultivated, and a lot of people that I respected still do.
Maybe they saw some of themselves in that. They're like, oh, I wish I could leave.
Whoa, I think 2 of them said that to me. Right? And not when I was leaving, but I saw them a couple years later, and they didn't quite say it like that, but they had the look in their eye. They're like,
you're happy.
Exactly. There's something, and it was, Yep. You nailed that one, Victor. So I spent some years in Malibu, and that's, after a certain time, that's when I just said, there's more. And I actually, I had what I would call a pretty dysfunctional relationship with a girlfriend, and then after that, really started getting myself in better shape and taking care of myself a lot better, and kind of picked myself up out of that hole. That was kind of the catalyst for change. And that's when I kind of redevoted myself to yoga, nutrition. I started doing a lot of mountain running, long distance trail running, not ultra running where these guys are running 100 miles, a day, but I could rip off 30 miles in Yosemite or something, multiple days in a row.
Oh, wow.
But I was also hurting myself, and I didn't really know about that yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a catalyst for change. And like I said, started taking care of myself a lot better, diving into yoga, doing a little CrossFit type activities, and enjoying life again. And living life more on my terms, spending a lot of time outside, and that's when I said, okay, there's more, and I sold everything, and that's when
Did you have a lot of stuff?
Started happening. I had a lot of crap, not a lot of valuable things. I've never been a shiny things guy.
Okay. So it was easy to let go.
Yes. And I
Okay.
felt the last couple of years I was there, it was a weight. I would walk around the house just, this stuff means nothing to me. It's oppressive. And I knew it.
Wow.
I knew it.
Wow.
And so I knew I needed a change. I mean, I could just feel it. It wasn't, and I lived it was a beautiful place, right? Good friends, all of that sort of thing. But I knew, again, my heart was telling me, no, there's more. And that's when I sold everything. And it's not like I put a whole bunch of money in the bank, but enough to start a new chapter. And that's when I call it jumping off the cliff. I've got a mentor that says, when you tell people that, why don't you say swimming across the river or something? And I'm like, well, it felt like I was jumping off a cliff at that point. No parachute, no turning back.
Yeah.
You can still turn back if you're swimming across a river sometimes. Sometimes, you know, when you really commit, you're jumping off a cliff.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did, and that was just in 2016.
Okay.
I was just 4.5 years ago. So that's when things really started to change for me. Sold everything.
What took your attention to the East?
I knew I would always go there, and not just as a tourist. I think 3 or 4 years before I made this decision, I was sitting with a friend, and we were having a cocktail or something, and I told her, I said, no, I want to move to Asia for a while. And she said, kind of like a monk? Live like a monk? And I said, something like that. You know, I've always had this idea of mastery. I remember reading Shogun, the James Clavell great novel about feudalistic Japan.
Like samurais?
Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly. And in that whole time period. And it's an epic novel. And I remember reading of the samurais and their dedication to not only their craft but themselves, and the wide variety of skills. I mean,
that it's applicable to, that like after you master yourself, can you master?
Well, that, but all the different facets of what self-mastery could mean. We all think of a samurai that's a sword master, but the tea ceremony is part of, if I'm not mistaken, what the samurai mastered. Ikebana, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, flower arranging could be one of the things that they mastered as well.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't think about a warrior mastering flower arranging.
Yeah, yin and yang.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that, I'll never forget that. I still have the pages I ripped out of the book in one of my chests that has a bunch of mementos and stuff. And it was description of what this character in the book, I believe, thought of as mastery. And I said, that.
Very cool.
That's it. So, you know, after meandering all over the place, I knew that I wanted to come back to that sort of thing. And my friend had asked me, well, like a monk, like living, and I said, well, yeah, kinda. But I knew I wanted to go over there and learn a different way. I just had an intuition that there was things over there.
You didn't seek any teachers here first?
I did. I absolutely did. And the universe, I don't want to say I found her, but the universe put us together. And what happened when I left Malibu, I packed up, sold most everything, packed up, put some things in storage, just mementos and stuff, and I went to Colorado, the little village that I had spent time in, that I kind of discussed earlier.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful little village at almost 9,000 feet, very remote. It's actually, there's one road that goes in and it dead ends. It's a dead end town. with 14,000 foot peaks all around it. Very special place. It's 4 hours from Denver, give or take, 4 hours from Albuquerque. There's no easy way to get there.
And what's it called, Crested Town or
Crestone.
Crestone? Okay.
Crestone. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's also a very spiritually charged place. They say it's a vortex. I feel that when I'm there, an energy vortex. And it's a very special place in that many, many years ago, and I'm not sure exactly when, but this couple owned one of the old Spanish land grants from, way back hundreds of years ago. And I think they had 10,000 acres or 15, whatever, a very large amount of very beautiful remote land.
Yeah.
And she had a dream. And in the dream, she was told to start giving away parcels of this land away to different religious and or spiritual sects for retreat centers. And so now I think there's something around 30 different retreat centers. It's a town of maybe 1,000 people. It varies depending on the season. It's pretty harsh climate there in the winter, so it shrinks in the winter. But, I think there's 12 Buddhist, I don't know if the number's right, but it's around there, monastery, working monastery / temples. Rinpoche's coming from Nepal, the whole 9 yards, like the real deal. There's an ashram there, many different religious sects. There's a Christian one, the whole thing, and still has maintained its flavor. It's the most unique place I've ever been.
Okay.
And there's a sustainable energy. There's a big hippie vibe there. Not wannabe hippies that are trying,
but they're
the real deal. And I love them. It's one of my favorite places on earth, and the people there are very, very special and dear to me. And this couple that I met years ago in Chicago that brought me out there. This is where I got into that movie, and I was in the movie, this little village. They had a home there still, one in Denver and one there. And I said, well, I'd love to come and spend the summer there. I think I want to go travel this fall. This was in June of 2016. And my idea was to go backpacking in Thailand, Vietnam, and kind of take it from there. And my body was kind of a little wrecked. I had an old knee injury that was flaring up, a back injury at the time I didn't know about. And a lot of this was made worse by running and some of the training I was doing, Olympic style lifting and these things. And so I was kind of hobbling along there. I couldn't really run anymore. And my first morning in this town, I'm walking down a dirt road, and I said, I'm not going to, and I was climbing at the time, nothing spectacular.
This is Colorado still?
Yep.
Okay.
In Crestone.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten there. I had just moved out from Malibu. I spent a week with my mom in Arizona, and then went to Crestone. And I was going to spend the summer there and then go to Asia, backpacking, the classic backpacking trip.
Yeah.
And I walking down, the first morning I was there, I'm walking down a dirt road, and I said, because I was doing yoga a couple times a week, not a real formal yoga, but more of a health club yoga, the music, the whole 9 yards. And I said, wow, I feel so good when I'm out of that class. And not just good in my body, but,
When you leave the class?
Yes.
Okay.
After yoga. And I'm like, and I was hurting, like I said, you know what? I'm going to find a good yoga teacher here. And there's a lot of authentic teachers in this little town / village. Some world-renowned teachers of a lot of different practices. And I said, well, I'm in Crestone. This is a place to find a real yoga teacher. And so I'm going to find a yoga teacher, and that's all I'm going to do for the next 30 days. I'm not going to go climbing. I'm not going to go run long distance and beat my body up anymore. I'm going to practice yoga for a month, and then I'm going to see how I feel. And I'm walking down this road, and 5 minutes later, or whatever, there's somebody walking down the other side of the road towards me with their hands in prayer, just like this, and we pass each other, and like a lightning bolt, right? I felt it right here. I'll never forget this. And it said, well, somebody that's in a walking meditation might be a good person to ask about a yoga teacher referral. And I'll never forget the last thought that went through my head was, it just might change the course of your life. And I turned around, and that person, that guy, had already turned around. We're walking like this. I turned around, and looking back at me, he had already turned around and was standing there 20 yards away from me, just waiting for me to turn around and talk to him. He's just looking at me. And so I turned around and went, yeah, like this, right? I'm like, whoa. But I'll never forget, I didn't say good morning. I didn't say, hi, my name's Phil. What's your name? It just came out of me like vomit. I need a yoga teacher, a good yoga teacher. It's just,
wow.
It pushed out of me. And he said, well, the reason you turned around wasn't to ask me about a yoga teacher. And a car had gone between us. He said, see that car right there? I said, yeah. And he goes, that's your yoga teacher. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, that's one of the finest yoga teachers in the world. That's your yoga teacher. And he goes, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I'm just taking a walk and stretching. And there's Buddhist stupas in this town. There's temples and stuff hidden in these trees in this little town. And stupas are those little Buddhist temples with a gold thing on top. And anyway, he goes, do you know where the big stupa is? And I said, yeah. And he goes, go to it. There's a fire ceremony this morning. There's Rinpoche's in from Nepal. That's where she's going. That's where I'm going. If you go home and get your car and drive out there, go out there. I'm going to introduce you to her after the ceremony. And I said, okay. And I hurried home, got in the car, went out there. There's probably 60 people there. It's a beautiful, beautiful stupa looking out over this valley with mountain, snow-capped peaks and big mountains on this side. Really a beautiful setting. And I watched this really stirring fire ceremony, which I didn't know anything about at the time. And then I met Annie Pace. And he introduced me to her, and she stands about right up to here on me, but she stands with power and grace, and she had something in her eyes. I call her the lady with dragon fire in her eyes. And a presence. I'm like, I want that. That's what I want. Wow. And she's got a hell of a sense of humor. She's smiling and glowing. And so she said, all right, well, you're in luck. I have my beginner's class tomorrow morning, every Wednesday at 8:30. It was Tuesday, obviously. And she said, just come. And she's an Ashtanga teacher.
And what is that?
Ashtanga is a type of yoga that is very strict in a good way in what they teach. It's a very ancient form of yoga. Ashtanga means the 8 limbs. And so most people think of yoga as just the poses, the physical poses that you see. That's one of 8 pieces of Ashtanga yoga.
Wow.
And there's 7 different parts of that. And it's a practice and an art for your life. Not just, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. Tight buns is not mentioned in the Yoga Sutras, which are, thousands of years old description of what yoga is. Yeah. A firm ass and hardcore abs are not mentioned anywhere in there. I guarantee you. No,
just to start off, like yoga means union.
That's exactly right. And I don't even in what we practice in this country, and I'm not ripping on it. It's just the truth is more the asana, which is the poses, one piece, and that's where we leave it. And I'm not ripping on it because that's how I became interested in yoga. Yeah. That was my entry point.
Right.
But once you learn the full wheel of yoga, you know, there's many different parts of it, the yamas and the niyamas and breath work and different things like this, different types of meditation, and finally samadhi, which is enlightenment. And, you know, I think it's the second Yoga Sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, means yoga is for ceasing the fluctuations of the mind. So it's a practice, a physical practice with the body, to affect all of this craziness and the storm that most of us have in our mind. And that's what it is. And I fell in love with that. And I said, this is exactly what I need. And so I did a work study with Annie, where, you know, I think I paid half price, but then got to work with her in her garden, work on her property for half my tuition. She's not cheap. People come from all over the world to train with Annie. And she's gone to India, I think 32 straight years now. And she trained with, I don't want to say the father of Ashtanga, but somebody that ushered in and brought yoga to the West.
Okay.
She was amongst, I think, the second wave of Americans to go and practice in India.
Okay.
You know, in the whole history of the science of yoga. So she was definitely a trailblazer and a very serious practitioner and teacher of Ashtanga Yoga. So she was what I would say my first real teacher.
Okay.
And after 10 days, I think, maybe less than that, I said, you know, she has pictures of her guru on the wall and everything, would talk about India a lot. And after a very short period of time, I said, well, I don't want to go backpacking in Thailand and Vietnam. I want to go to India. I want to practice, you know, with these teachers. And so I talked to her about it, and she said, well, give it 3 months here. You know, then you can slowly start making plans to go over there, but 3 months here, you've got to do. And so I did that, and then was put in touch and accepted into the Institute in Mysore, India, which is Ashtanga. And that's when I went to Asia. And I bought a one-way ticket.
Yeah.
Didn't know when I was coming back. Wasn't on my mind. But that's how my trip and life in Asia.
How's everyone else around you, like, that you once knew? Like, how are they okay doing this or with you? Like,
with me doing it? Well, my parents have always been very supportive of me. Whatever you want to do, just do it. My father had a little tough time, understandably, when I quit playing golf. I can't blame him. But they, I mean, every step of the way, they've kind of just thrown their hands up in the air and said, oh, here he goes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's going to follow his heart. He's going to follow his passion. And he usually lands on his feet. And I think a lot, and I'm not saying my parents or family specifically, but, you know, sometimes, I mean, I feel like I'm showing them a way as well, you know, whether it's friends or family, because I think they also knew that during all this time I wasn't quitting things.
Yeah, you're not doing nothing. Yeah.
No, I was moving on and closer and closer and closer to what the heck I'm supposed to be doing here, and my passion and purpose. And that was one of my things when I sold everything. I said, I am going to finally find my passion and purpose on this planet. And I I know that one of the things that it must contain is I'm going to be of service to people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like most of the things I'd done in my life up to that point were pretty selfish and self-centered for me, my pleasure, this and that. But I said, I finally need to learn how to give. And so that was a main part of my mission, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very grateful for that time with Andy. And then I bought a one-way ticket, went to Mysore, and started practicing Ashtanga there in a very intense environment. My teacher there, Saraswati, was one of the first female yoga teachers on the planet.
Yeah.
She's 82 probably now.
Oh, wow.
And then her father, Patabi Joyce, was he and BKS Iyengar, and you may have heard of Iyengar Yoga. They were the two teachers that kind of brought yoga to the West, and so that was her direct.
I'm not familiar.
Teacher.
The only one I am is Bikram.
Yeah. Yep. Well, these guys were kind of before
Wow.
Bikram. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was into that lineage and
Wow.
very fortunate
Special.
to get accepted. Yeah, very special. And that's really when my deeper interior
You're
learning
like, I'm getting closer.
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of it not fun at all, because when it's again not just a physical practice. You're really diving very deep into who you are. You're questioning things. You're purging yourself. You're walking through the fire. And I remember when I came back, I was in India for 2 years. My mom said, "What was the funnest part?" He said, "Yeah, none of it. None of it. But it was the best thing I ever did, the whole thing, because deep self-inquiry, deep self-awareness, when you put that mirror and shine that mirror on yourself, you see a lot of stuff that you don't want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really talks about the sense of loss and the deep sense of mourning that there is in becoming aware of yourself and your ego.
When you say a mourning of like who you used to be.
Yeah, who you are at that point when you first start. I was grossed out. You see your ego.
Yeah.
And just pieces of it, and still it's a lifelong practice, right? I'm not sitting here and saying that I've purged myself from it. Far from it. But when you really first walk down that path, it's pretty gross.
Yeah. And
I had a lot of anger in me from when I was younger. Blaming other people. My parents for certain things. Stuff that a lot of us have inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it was extremely difficult. That summer, so much anger came out of me that summer before I went to India. And then those 4 months or whatever I was in Mysore, I was miserable. But I also knew that it was really exactly where I needed to be. Exactly what I needed to be dealing with. I was doing a lot of writing, all of this sort of thing, and I can feel it now. It's gross, but so necessary. I mean, one of the analogies I use is if you have poison in your stomach, there you have two choices. You can throw it up and vomit it out, which is gross, uncomfortable, shitty taste in your mouth, all these things, right? Well, the other alternative, it sits in there and slowly kills you. Whether that physically kills you or kills your spirit, emotionally,
right.
Whatever. And so I was vomiting that out. And it's a purge. It's a purge. And so that was the beginning of it, not the end of it. But that was the beginning of it. So that was my first 4 months in India.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of traveling before I started the practice, but then those months in Mysore, India, practicing Ashtanga.
Okay. I've never heard of Ashtanga. I saw it. Yeah, I've honestly never heard of it. It sounds very, very interesting.
It is, and it's not for everybody. It's hardcore. It's hardcore.
Are there any schools around this area?
In Chicago, I'm positive there are. I don't know. I don't know for sure any that I would direct you to. I'd be very picky about choosing an Ashtanga teacher. As Annie would say, it's if you haven't practiced yourself for maybe at least 5-6 years, your own self practice from another very qualified Ashtanga teacher, you probably have no business calling yourself an Ashtanga teacher. And I'm not ripping on anybody, but it's akin to a martial art.
Yeah.
In that,
but wonder, isn't there like a community that calls them out on it? There's no like.
It's starting to.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it's starting to. I mean, I think, and again, I don't want to cast shade on anybody, but I think these teacher trainings and everything, people
becomes a business.
Practice yoga. Exactly. They practice yoga for 6 months and they love it.
Yeah.
They said, I'm going to go to a teacher training. So they spend 200 hours and they get a certificate, and now I'm a yoga teacher. No. So there's a lot of controversy in the yoga world right now with things like that. When you talk to some of these old school yoga teachers, to be honest with you, they're kind of disgusted with the state of affairs. But it's tough too, because like they'll tell you,
that's your entry point. That's like, it could have been your. I know, right? We keep going.
Exactly. We talked about it earlier.
So it is what it
today,
is,
right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, that's how I got started in it at a health club on the beach in LA.
Right.
Oh, I you know why I like going to this yoga teacher? Because he plays the best music. Right? And but that's what got me into it, and helped me go down the path,
Yeah, we were talking about this as well. It's just like not being antagonistic either.
Exactly.
It's just like, oh, that's not real yoga. Like we also don't want to approach it that way.
That's right.
As well.
Everyone's trying, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's many people out there going, well, I'm going to pull the wool over everybody's eyes today. Everyone's trying hard.
Yeah.
And am I going to rip on somebody that, had an office job and then decided to become a yoga teacher, and for the first couple of years, maybe they don't have that much experience, but who knows what's going to happen in 10? Mm-hmm. How many good yoga teachers have been doing it for 20 years, but when they started, that's what they were.
Yeah.
The tough thing, I think, though, is these are very physical practices, and I think the dirty little secret in yoga that we talked about is how many injuries happen in practicing yoga. I think a lot of times there are teachers out there that are answering questions that students have about their spine or things like this that they are probably not qualified to answer, and they're afraid to say, I don't know. You need to find somebody, or I'll help you find somebody that can honestly answer that question, because there's a lot of injuries in yoga, like any other physical discipline, right? So I think that's the only thing. I think, the 3 toughest words, I have a buddy that always tells me 3 toughest words in the English language. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think that could be employed a little more.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a lot of ego in yoga too, and I think most people are going to it to firm up their buns and stuff. But again, well, that's good too.
Right? Like, you tell yourself, like, go to dissolve the ego, and then, like, here we are, like...
Well, and I know it happened to me at certain points.
Right.
I know that. And I know Annie, maybe someday she'll listen to this podcast, she's going to go, oh, yeah, well, you're talking about yourself, you little shit. Right? So it's all in there. I've made the mistakes, and and you see people in a lot of these classes, they're going to see how deep they can get into the pose and show everybody in the class what a badass they are. You know, but there's so many other aspects, the breath, and really it's about diminishing the ego and making friends with it, not showing everybody what a badass you are,
right?
Because you can get into these poses that other people can't, and so it's a tough thing, you know. But again, I'm not going to rip on anybody that's out there trying.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. I know where I started, and I know where I am at now, so to speak. I mean, it's not like I'm some ascended master or anything. No. I'm just trying like everyone else is.
And so what was the next part of the journey? It was Manipur?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yep. So at that point, I thought I wanted to become a yoga teacher. I wasn't really sure. I knew I wanted to be in this world, this spiritual world, in some way. And again, I wanted to be of service to people, and of course do something I enjoyed. And so I found the next teacher, who again is an excellent teacher, an Iyengar teacher. Iyengar is a different type of yoga, a little slower, not as hardcore in a lot of ways as Ashtanga is. And I went to Goa, and Goa is on the beach in the jungle. It's kind of a resorty place in India. It's where a lot of Europeans. It's actually where one of the areas that the Europeans first inhabited. It was a Spanish or a Portuguese colony for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay. So there's still a lot of that flavor there.
Okay.
And so I went there for a month to practice Iyengar, because I knew that there was a intensive that I wanted to visit up in the Himalayas with the same yoga company, school, shala, however you want to phrase it. And to go to that month-long intensive, I had to take 3 weeks of classes first, introductory classes. They didn't want any real beginners at this intensive at the ashram in the Himalayas. So I spent a month in Goa practicing Iyengar, which was, again, a whole nother side of yoga, but very beneficial. And then I did a little traveling. I wanted to actually just chill out for a little bit. So I did a little traveling, went to Jaipur. I had to go to Agra to see the Taj Mahal, and then went to Varanasi, which is the most intense, heaviest place I've ever been in my life. That's the most spiritual, for lack of a better word, place in the Hindu religion. That's the most auspicious place to either die or have your ashes scattered. The Ganges runs through it. Yeah. You know, sacred river of the Ganges. And this is where the a lot of the Babas and the holy men gather. And it's also a place where they'll do a lot of cremations. So the Ganges River, there's a couple miles of what they call the Ghats, which are steps that go down to the river. And because this is the center of the Hindu faith, there's a lot of pilgrims, a lot of spiritual tourists, and a lot of just tourists like myself at that time, travelers that go there. And it's an amazing place. The energy is indescribable. And in one part of these Ghats is where people bring their family members or loved ones that have passed to do the cremations. And so you're there watching bodies burn.
Wow.
It's heavy, man.
Yeah.
It's it's tough to describe, but that was a whole nother experience, and I was only there for 4 days, but that'll stick with me forever. And then I went to Nepal, went to Everest Base Camp.
Cool.
Did that, but then went back to India after 3 weeks and was told I had a Vedic reading, astrology reading done while I was in India. And this is one of Annie's teachers. So I spent some time with Annie in Mysore, and I got a reading from her philosophy teacher, who's an incredible human, and like an 8th generation Vedic teacher, astrologer, and I had never really believed in that before.
Okay.
I didn't know. I didn't, not believe in astrology or anything. I just didn't know. And after you get a reading from him, there's no, like, the people that had gone readings before me said, yeah, you be careful what you ask about, because you're going to find out. Make sure you want to know when you die. Make sure you want to know when your parents are going to die, because he's going to tell you.
What? What?
Oh, yeah. I met people there that 10 years prior, he had called almost the day of when they were going to have their firstborn. I mean, a day or two off. But anyway, my own experience, I sat down for a reading, and it was 2 hours long, and he told me every detail about my relationship with my parents, my friends. He said, how did you get the injury? How did you get the injury in your back?
You didn't
that
tell
happened
him
a
that
couple
you had
years.
an injury?
No.
Whoa,
Nothing. You give him your
what?
birth date and your birth time and stuff like that, and that's it. And it takes him 8 hours to do these charts, and he has an assistant there next to him. He told me I was going to have stomach problems. I got salmonella 8 months later and was sick for 2.5 years. Serious gut issues.
Yeah.
And gut
Yeah.
brain issues. Oh, so I asked him, I told him the places I wanted to go. I said, I want to go to Goa. Then I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to spend a couple months in Nepal. I want to go get lost in the Himalayas and do some mountaineering and things like that. And then I want to go to Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives, and the Tibetan government in exile, and a lot of the Tibetan people had moved, and I wanted to spend some time in the Indian Himalayas. And he says, oh yeah, so that sounds good, but you'll only be in Nepal for 3 weeks because you have to come back for training. And he said, all the places you go, you're going to travel to, but you're going to train, and you're going to find teachers there that are going to take you on your path. And he told me a lot of things about my future, and that I would be a teacher. And he goes, yeah, but not yoga. More practical, but you will be. And he said some very flattering things that I don't need to go into, but about me being a teacher. But anyway, everything he said was right. When I found the schedule about when I had to come back to India to go to the ashram, sure enough, I was only going to be in Nepal for 3 weeks. Anyway, the whole thing he
That's
laid
insane.
out, it was insane. You walk out of there, you're just shaking. I mean, it was pretty wild. But a lot of people walk out of there in tears, because he sits you down and tells you, I'm not going to tell you a bunch of happy things.
Yeah, good and bad. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what's up. And he said the same thing. Be careful what you ask for, because I'm going to tell you.
So, but you have to go in with questions.
You should.
Yeah.
When you have that available to you.
Yeah.
Yep. And so they tell you to go in with questions. But like I said, the people that I knew before I went into that, they said, oh, you're getting a reading from Acharya? And they all got the same look on their face. Like, be careful what you ask about. Because, like I said, do you really want to know how old you're going to live to sometimes? Maybe you've got a year left. Is that the question you want to ask? You know what I mean?
But, I mean, to be honest, shouldn't we be living our...
Exactly.
Right? Our life like it's the last.
It's the last day, right? Exactly. But anyway, so I went to Nepal and had a great time there. That was actually fun, going up to Everest and everything. Yeah. But then I had to go back, and I went to this ashram for, I think it was a month long. And they didn't tell you this before you sign up, but there's no talking unless you want to ask the teacher a question. And so, you're up at 4:30. You're practicing Iyengar for about 8 hours a day, split up in different segments, but self-practice and then pranayama practice, which is breath work, or harnessing the life force through the breath is a better description of it. And then meditation, and vegetarian, cooking only, lecture. And so it's a very long day. And with the no talking, that really builds a box around your brain, an echo chamber, because it's just you and your thoughts. And it was, again, not fun. I mean, here's a big egomaniac, loudmouth American. You know what I mean? And it really builds this box around your brain, and you see how much BS is in your thoughts. And then they also give you the tools to understand
I was gonna
that.
ask if so I guess it's like acknowledging it, but like, did the practices help?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's stuff that I still practice on almost a daily basis. Absolutely. And that's the point, is they want you to see how much bullshit is in there.
By forcing you to not talk to anyone.
Yeah. And that, and just live with yourself. And it's really hard. And
that's what people had to realize during quarantine. When quarantine started, they're like, what?
Exactly.
That's why people shouldn't be put in prison.
That's exactly right. Or what do they call it when you're by yourself? When they put you in
solitary.
Solitary.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
people were stuck in their own home with Netflix, and they were still going crazy.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and you could still go to the grocery store and buy whatever you wanted, and
you're still going crazy.
Exactly. And so that was a whole nother thing, but a great experience. And what was cool is it was a yoga therapy intensive. And so it was to fix a lot of things. Most of the people there was 28 people there, and most of them had some pretty serious issues that they've been battling, physical issues that they've been battling for varying degrees of their life. And it helped me a lot more understand myself mentally than it did physically, but everyone had different experiences. But so we came out of that, and I went to Dharamsala, which is where the Dalai Lama lives, and the Tibetan government in exile. And Dharamsala, above Dharamsala, there's a little village right before the big mountains start, the last village up, called Dharamkot. And I was staying in a little guest house there because this ashram had a little satellite yoga school where the students that went to the intensive could practice in this shala for free. And this is an idyllic place. It's beautiful. Snow-capped peaks everywhere. It was also a very hot time in India, hot time of the year, and everything is kind of parched. And this is up at altitude, and everything is lush and green and cool. And I was going to take a break there. And this is when things changed again. One of the people that was in the ashram with me said, I keep hearing about this doctor in town, and their clinic opens on May 1st for the season. Everything in India is very seasonal in these spots. There's monsoon and things like this. So this clinic is only open for 3 months. And she said, the introductory consultation is free. Why don't you check it out? I made an appointment, check it out. So I call in, I make an appointment, and I went in to the Bone and Body Clinic, it's called. And after spending half an hour with the doctor, I walked out. I'm like, I found him, or he found me, or whatever. I was just like, wow, you're in the presence of greatness and a true master. And they sit you down and they map your whole body, and he tells you all your issues, half of which I had no idea about. I knew I had some pain here and this and that, but he goes way back, and he asks you about, when did you injure your back? I'm like, I've never injured my back. He said, my friend, you have 3 compressed sacral discs that are all twisted to the side. This is why you're...
Without an x-ray.
No x-ray. If you have x-rays, they'll look at them. A lot of people Well, a lot of people do it remotely first. A lot of Europeans, Australians, Americans, they'll send in their MRIs, their X-rays, all of their history. A lot of the people that go there, this is their last hope.
Wow.
They're broken. They've gone through 8 to 10 surgeries, car accidents, people in wheelchairs, people that are told you're going to have to live with this, or you've got 4 surgeries coming up. This is the end of the road for a lot of people before they, it's an incredible place. So a lot of people do bring their records. I was just walking, it happened to be in town, which is how they get a lot of their business, travelers. So there's a lot of travelers in this region. And, but I walked out of there. So he sits you down. His name is Ringo. And his wife is Miranda, two of the most incredible people I've ever had a chance to meet. And his extended family, Ringo's extended family, Momo and Chandra and Toybi. But so they sit you down and he runs some oil down your spine and he feels every single vertebrae. He knows exactly where they're at. He's in you. And then he goes to all the other joints and tells you all about your body. And then they come up with a treatment program. And his family is from a place called Manipur. You've got the Indian subcontinent that looks like an ice cream cone. Mm-hmm. And not many people know that there's 7 Indian states way up here above Bangladesh, below Tibet, called the 7 Sisters, and one of them is called Manipur. And the people there really have nothing to do with the people of the Indian subcontinent. When the British left, they drew a big boundary around a bunch of stuff and called it all India. A lot of people in Manipur and those seven sisters aren't real happy that they're part of India, but it is what it is. But it's a very different culture. It's a very different lineage, and it's a culture of great warriors and great healers, martial artists. And he is a martial arts master as well as a musculoskeletal doctor. And in their martial arts tradition, you learn the punching and kicking, but you also learn the healing part.
Yeah.
And they call their healers bone setters. And it's akin to like an osteopath or a chiropractor, but I think with a much wider scope of the human body. And so I went there as a patient, and they told me it would be a month to 2 months before my spine was twisted, which was pulling on this hip, which was pulling on this knee, all sorts of things. And they go to the root cause of things. If you have a knee injury, they're not just looking at your knee. Mm-hmm. They're looking, they actually know how to examine the whole body, which I think is the lost art in a lot of medical professions, lineages, however you want to say it. And I'm trying to be sensitive to Western medicine there. But so I spent 2 months there, and after a week, I was already begging them to let me work there. And like when I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a yoga teacher or whatever, I don't know, but I feel like I've never seen, I just saw the people there and how they're getting healed. And also there's people that return there every year, people that had really messed up bodies. And they're like, well, here's my story. And you hear these stories of, there's people that there's a couple people that were in wheelchairs for over 15 years. Europeans, people with money that had traveled the world, paralyzed. And you can go on the boneandbody.com website and see the testimonials that I met these people, and they're like, yeah, that's the girl that was in a wheelchair for 15 years. And after 2.5 months in Goa, Ringo got her out of a wheelchair and she's walking around. You would never know. And that's not everybody. He's not a miracle worker, right? But he knows when he can fix people, and there's some that he can't. But I saw things that people would think are miracles or magic. that some of the healing that he and his family and these techniques did.
Wow.
And I know the help that they gave me. So I begged them to let me work with them. And they, at the end of my treatment there, said yes. And so I was there with them for about a year in total. And I was fortunate enough, they take 2 months off in the fall and 2 months off in the spring, in between seasons. They're in the Himalayas in the summer, and then in the winter they're back down in Goa in the jungle. And so for 2 months I got to travel with him and his family back to Manipur. And then we took a great epic motorcycle / Jeep trip up to Tibet through the Himalayas and all this, but met his parents, spent time with his family, and things like that. And
That's special.
it was maybe the most important year of my life, really, to this point, for so many different reasons. These are some of the most compassionate people. And I still had such a big ego, and I'm asking questions I had no business asking and just talking too much. And it was a classic Westerner. It was like the fumbling Westerner that goes to a martial arts school in the East and just makes all the classic mistakes and blah, 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 blah. So I was kind of a little bit of a fish out of water. But learned so much and helped a lot of people, I think. And like I said, that was one of the more important years of my life. But they have a movement program that is used in conjunction to what the physical manual therapy that Ringo does. And every patient has to go through that program 5 days a week. You sign a patient contract that, this is not just on the doctor. It's 50-50. You got to put the work in, and they will ask people to leave.
Imagine if the Western medicine made people do that.
Exactly. I mean, in these people, you work your butt off, and it's not fun. When things start moving in your body and tendons and ligaments and everything start returning to their proper place, but when those things start moving, it's pretty uncomfortable. And I had it on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as the uncomfortableness. I was at a 2. I've seen and worked with patients that were at a 9 or a 10. It's brutal.
Yeah.
But it's extremely effective. And it's not always that way. Most people don't go through that. But that's one of the programs that I learned was their movement program that their patients do 5 days a week. And it straightens and strengthens. It straightens the tendons, ligaments, nerves, muscles, bones. It strengthens our muscles at a very core level. In their system, we have 7 layers of muscle. The biceps and the outer layer being kind of the least important for fundamental health. And so this is going into the deep core muscles that hold the spine in place, secure the joints, are really responsible for a lot of the movement and fundamental health. It pumps the lymphatic system. It does a lot of things. And this is what their martial artists train and learn, starting at a very young age.
Myofascial release.
All of that.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of different circulatory benefits to it. Too many to really just go through. But it's an incredible program, and that's what I was able to assist patients with, is that program. And then as I became more adept in my new body, I was demonstrating that program a couple days a week, or a couple sessions a day. And that movement program has become one of the cornerstones of the program that I've put together.
Yeah.
That helps people, and that's what you did today.
Right.
And that's what I did with Jason Chan, and and some other people and a lot of other students.
He described that it was like a lifelong injury that you helped heal in a session.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It was insane. It was kind of, And I don't know.
And by injury, and I didn't ask Jason, but like, and you don't have to say it, but
Yeah.
like, it doesn't have to be like a physical injury. It can be like an emotional or a mental, or
Well, it can, and this was something he was born with. He was just kind of a little bit duck-footed, and I don't know that it's completely healed, but in one session, just in how we stand and things that you experienced today, it's kind of like going to an auto body shop when they hook up the chains and your frame on the car has been bent in an accident, and they pull those chains through traction, and all of a sudden that frame goes.
Yeah.
Did you feel that today?
I did.
Yeah. And that's what happened with Jason's hip. That's what happened with my spine. And again, when you're there seeing the doctor, he's adding his manual therapy, which is, something that I don't do.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing the movement therapy. But it's been extremely beneficial for me and pretty much everybody that I've taught it to.
Yeah.
They see immediate results.
Yeah, we talked, the trifecta of the mind, body, and spirit, and how people are kind of lacking the spirit these days, but it's all interconnected.
It is.
And you're trying to reinvigorate or rekindle the spirit within us. And through all the things that you made me do today, it wasn't hard. It was like you're forced to come to terms with yourself. You're forced to just show up and be present.
It's a good way of putting it.
And when you have so many things on you, parts of you that you're giving me cues, and I'm like, you can't help but be present in the moment.
That's right. Yeah, I've found the same, and that's what I originally saw as a patient and felt, and that's why, like I said, I begged them. I'm like, oh no, I need to know more about this. That's right. And I think so many people think that presence is just maybe a mental aspect.
Yeah, you talked about that a lot. We are constantly in the sympathetic nervous response, fight or flight.
That's right. Emergency mode.
We're always like at the edge of the seat, ready to do something. Whereas like we should be in the parasympathetic nervous system, and you have the tools, and your goal is to give people these tools.
Yes.
To reset and come back to the parasympathetic nervous, the rest and digest.
That's right.
To be of the observer.
That's right.
Yeah.
A more natural state.
Yeah.
I mean, the sympathetic nervous system is fantastic if you've got a real emergency on your hands. But so many of us, that's where we're spending 98% of our time.
Yeah. Can you reshare the chainsaw anecdote?
Absolutely. And I don't believe it's mine. I don't remember. But, we were talking, and I was trying to illustrate how the mind, how we're trapped and we're right here. And for those of you that are just listening, you can't see me, but I've got my hand on my face, almost like a cage, prison, and we're trapped.
We're in our own way.
And we are completely in our own way, and we think that we are our thoughts. We're fused with our thoughts. We identify ourselves with our mind only. And we're stuck in that monkey mind, just never ending, round and around. It never shuts off, and we really think that that's all we are. And we're disconnected from the body in the way that most of us, especially past a certain age, have issues with the body, pain here, gut issues there, stomach problems, like I said, weight issues, all of these tightnesses, compensations, blockages.
And it's not like the end of the world, so people just live with it.
That's right. And they think it's normal because everybody around them has the same thing. Yeah. That's exactly right. I'm getting old. They don't really think about their diet too much, although obviously that's changing to a certain degree. But it's just common. And what's common doesn't mean it's normal. We get those two words mixed up. Yes, it's common, especially here in this country with the diet that we eat and the stress that we put ourselves under, but we're so disconnected from the body because most of the feedback that we get from the body is negative. Why would I want to embrace the feeling I have in my gut and the fact that I don't go to the bathroom on a regular basis and my knee hurts, my back hurts, I have complete stress, my shoulders are tight. So we turn away from that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a complete disconnection between mind and body, and we think that we're in the mind. And the analogy that you were discussing of the chainsaw, the mind, and especially the intellectual mind, is meant to be a tool. It's not supposed to, we're not supposed to identify that with who we are. It's a tool, and it's maybe the most powerful tool on the planet, but yet it's just a tool. And it's a tool in the way that if there's a tree I want to cut down, I go to the shed, I get out my chainsaw, which I've taken care of and I've fueled properly, and I pull the cord a couple of times, and I take that chainsaw out, I cut the tree down, and then I turn the chainsaw off and I put it away. But these days that chainsaw never gets shut off. It never gets put away. That chainsaw, it's like if I would have taken that chainsaw outside, cut a tree down, and then you and I are in here talking, Victor, and I bring that chainsaw in and it's on and it's sitting on that table. It's not doing anything other than running, and it's stinking the place up with fumes. I'm wasting fuel with it, just as if my never-ending mind is sucking energy and fuel from my body and life of where I should be using that energy. And that chainsaw never shuts off. It's always in the background. And it becomes, again, common. We become accustomed to that. And we started identifying our normal existence in this apartment with that chainsaw being there.
Yeah.
I walk in every time. It's here, or actually I'm bringing it with me around in my day. That chainsaw comes and I put it in my passenger seat of my car. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's you want to go on a vacation? Oh, I'm going on a vacation. Guess what? That chainsaw is coming with you. Wherever you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
You've heard that.
Yeah.
We don't know how to escape it. That's the stress.
Yes.
That we're under. That is stress. And that is our mind committing slow suicide for our being. We're just slowly committing a slow suicide and taking away quality of life. That chainsaw never goes off.
And so we incorporated conscious movement in addition to breath work.
That's right.
And how did you come up to the type of cadence to the breath work?
So that was part of what I learned at the clinic.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you really want to match, there's all sorts of different kinds of breath work, but you want to match the breath with the movement.
Okay.
That's how boxers.
Yeah, I just didn't know how fast to move until you gave me the cues.
Well, it's different for everybody because, a lot of people, if they're 75 years old and have been sitting on the couch for 40 years, they're going to move in a different cadence than you are.
True.
I work with some PGA Tour players and there are other athletes that are in different kind of shape. They're going to be moving differently as well. And so that breath just follows the movement.
Yeah.
But then we also incorporate, I like to incorporate other breaths. And this is yoga as well, right? The most important part about yogic poses, maybe a lot don't know this, is the breath, is a proper breathing with that. And even in Ashtanga, they have a very specific breath called Ujjayi, which means the breath of victory, that they incorporate into every single movement in Ashtanga. And so it never changes. You go down, up, boom, 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 the different motions of the series of Ashtanga, there's a specific breath in or out that goes along with every movement. It never changes. And the Ujjayi is again, we don't have to get into the details of it now, but it's a very specific breath. So marrying movement with breath is absolutely nothing I've made up.
But that's just one component to maintaining focus as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so,
But it's so many things, because like you were also explaining, like I don't breathe. I breathe shallowly every day, typically, and it's like it forces you to move your rib cage to a certain point, and like you're affecting your abdominal organs, and they're not moving like that on a daily basis, and
that's right.
and then you feel certain things in places you're like, oh, what?
Well, and that's the first pillar of, or maybe the second pillar of change is you learned self-awareness in different ways today that you
Mm-hmm.
haven't.
Yeah, it was
Before.
more of a mental self-awareness before, and now it was very physical today.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to mental, but there was a physical component to it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And over time, I found, um, and I saw this at the clinic, and I knew that this would be part of my teaching. So most go to that clinic for physical assistance, right? Parts of their body. But what happens to almost everybody, especially when the doctor really starts opening up your spine, which is your central nervous system
Mm-hmm.
connected to the brain,
Mm-hmm.
you see, and I went through the same thing. He opened up my spine, straightened my spine, opened my hips up, and the emotional component to this type of physical healing was completely unexpected. It was an absolute roller coaster. And most people that I saw, the patients form their own little support groups there because you're there for a month or two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're not there for an appointment. Most people are there for a month, 2 months, some people longer. And you see very quickly the emotional component that comes with this physical, what you previously thought was just going to be a physical healing. The mind-body loop, mind-body connection becomes very obvious. And like I said, it's something that we've turned away from, connecting the mind and body. Most people think that they're two separate systems.
Right.
It's the whole system. It's
Right,
different
right.
parts of the same system.
Right.
And so you can't affect one without affecting the other, even if we're unconscious of that. We're in this loop of negative thinking, negative feedback from the body, and it's going around in a loop. And what I saw there and experienced was the emotional component to this healing. I would have days of bliss and days of anger. All of this stuff was coming out of me as things were opening up, and everybody else was having, in their own specific way, but similar experiences. And they're like, what's going on? I'm just a wreck today. Yesterday was the greatest day of my life. What's going on? And then when I started working there, that's something I would help people with, is a lot of these fears and emotions that were coming out, or I tried to. But I'm like, wow, you see the mind-body connection there. You can't help it. And if this physical healing is having such an effect on my emotional state, well, I wanted to examine that more,
Mm-hmm.
and use that as a point of entry
Mm-hmm.
into physical, mental, spiritual connection. That pain can be used as an opportunity to go into that whole loop.
Yeah.
And affect all three components, and connect that. And so, like I said, I saw that as an opportunity. And one of the cornerstones of what I'm trying to help people with is we can go in, and it's, like I said, it's nothing that I've invented. I'm trying to communicate it in a little different way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, yoga, the main goal is to cease the fluctuations of the mind in a physical practice. That's thousands of years old. It's nothing I've made up. But I saw there, like I said, and what I'm trying to bring to people, and again, that movement therapy is just one piece of what I'm teaching. I teach meditation and breathwork and lymphatic drainage, even journaling, different types of journaling and tapping into the subconscious by writing. a lot of different things, but a cornerstone of really feeling the nexus of the mind body and affecting not only the physical body in the ways that we've talked about, straightening out all the kinks and compensations and things like that in the physical body, but affecting stress in the mind.
Yeah.
In a very positive way. And so far my students have had success, and like I said, what I saw there was deeply profound and really pushed me in this direction.
Yeah, and you're not. It's not dogmatic. You're not pushing. You're not forcing it down anyone's throat either. It's like, but you're ready when they show up. But I guess another like big question, like in just due to relevant recent times, I think a lot of people are there's a lot of angst and anxiety,
Absolutely.
a lot of stress, and they might not have the courage to face themselves at the moment. And I'm curious as to like what does it take? What does it take to flip the mirror on yourself? At what point are you going to stop blaming other people?
Well, that's a great question, and I guess for everybody it's different.
Yeah.
Some people have to hit a different low.
Okay.
It's like, I think we spoke a little bit about this this morning, whether it's alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever. Some people are able to snap themselves out of that a little faster than others. Others have to hit a lower low. But I think we all have a seed or a spark inside of us when we're living the way a lot of us do in the Western world that says there's something else here. There's something I'm missing. I think the piece of self-inquiry that needs to happen in order for self-awareness to come is just, really, are you living the life that you thought that you were? I mean, it's a
people
very
I
tough
think,
thing.
Yeah, people use narratives, and they tell themselves certain things, and it's okay to have narratives. It gives our meaning, or it gives our life meaning. But at what point are you going to move to chapter 2?
Yeah. Well, that's true, and I think that there's a feeling of helplessness out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a feeling of, I can't do this for myself. We're so used to other people doing things for us, and even if we go to the doctor, they're going to give us a pill.
Right.
They're going to cut us open, and they're going to fix the ACL or whatever it is. It's pill or surgery, and we've really lost the realization that all of this stuff, for the most part, there's still, of course, things that we need to go to the doctor for and everything. But we've lost the sense of self, where I can control myself. That we're so disconnected from that. And we blame, we get angry, it's other people's fault, this and that. And I think people have gotten a ways away from understanding that they can control a lot of this themselves. And yes, I've had so much help from other people. It's not that you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that when you make a decision and you step boldly in the direction, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's, as soon as you say that, and for me, writing, when you write some of these things down, just put pen to paper, a different consciousness kicks in. And the universe is conspiring, and I think it's so hard for people to believe now because a lot of us are so lost, but the universe wants to help you. People that believe in God and religion, what are you going to church for? What are they telling you at church? God's there to help you. The universe, whatever words you want to put in there, right? And when you decide that you want to make a change and you're conscious of that, I believe that forces come to your assistance. Like even people listening to this podcast right now or watching this on YouTube, you have it inside of you to control yourself.
Yeah.
And make that change. It's not outside of you. It is not exterior. It is not over there. It's not for other people. It's in you. It's in all of us. And I think the first thing that comes is self-inquiry. And you have to ask yourself some tough questions. I mean, it's not an easy road, right?
No.
But, you know, the only thing that you have to know is that all you want is tomorrow to be a little better than today. We're not trying to climb the whole mountain in one day. Tomorrow can be better than today.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday can be better than Monday. Thursday is going to be a lot better than Wednesday. I mean, there's a progression there.
Yeah.
You know, but I think a lot of people, they just are looking around them and no one that they know is doing this. Everybody's kind of living the same existence. And like I said, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
Yeah.
And what we see as common nowadays isn't so great in a lot of places for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just that disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from others, and that duality is false. But we don't feel that anymore. We've gotten so far away from feeling and being, and just so into thinking and negative thought and negative self-talk that making that switch is tough, but people need to realize that it starts within them. And it's just making a decision. They don't have to do it all tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the power is within them.
It's making that decision.
Yes.
I can't help but think about those that live like in the rougher neighborhoods, and I feel like they have nothing but to choose the fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And it's like just survival out there, and they don't. And I mean, it's just a bigger mountain to climb.
Absolutely.
But they might not have the luxury to take a breather. Which is exactly what they need.
It is.
And it's like, and that's a whole nother issue of like accessibility and education and resources, and you know, everyone can just say like leave, but it's not that easy.
Absolutely not. And I think a lot of times they've never seen a family member, friends, or anybody get out of that situation.
Mm-hmm. When that's all you've known.
That's all you've known. That's all that people around them have ever known. They've never seen anybody leave successfully from that. So where's hope? How do you hope? How do you I mean,
could that be the spark to make that decision for self-inquiry is finding hope?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
for something better.
And I think that seed, that spark is in all of us, but I can't, sit there and in with my background, say that somebody that grew up, let's say in the south side of Chicago, in the environment that we're talking about, you know, that seed or that spark might be way, way, way down in there, and where they don't even know it exists anymore. And I think that that's part of my job, you know, is to let people know that no, that's in you right now. And yes, people are going to come to your aid and help you. You know, that's possible, but it's inside of us. It's in there.
Yeah.
And you know, it's easy for me to say that, right? I didn't come from that background.
Right.
And so it's a path that I am unfamiliar with. I'm not going to sit there and go, yeah, I understand how you feel. How could I? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think I know the human spirit and understand a little bit about that. And for those people that I can touch that are in those situations, that spark is in all of us.
Can you outline the backbone and the formula of your program?
Sure. Well, to
start with self-inquiry and then...
Yeah, and I kind of think of in equations, kind of what we talked about today. And and so it's a integrated program of proven practices that really put us in touch with what we've talked about, our often fragmented mind, body, spirit loop that we've forgotten about. And, you know, the first stage is self-inquiry. You just have to ask. There has to be some part of us that seeks.
It's like, where do we seek, you know?
Yeah.
But like you also said that the universe is going to conspire to, like, if you're seeking, people will come, things will come your way, and then eventually you're going to gain a certain level of awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. The awareness comes, and I think with awareness, you start to see really what's working for you and what's not. And with that becomes the next step is usually self-discipline. When you know that this food isn't working for you, sitting on your butt isn't working for you, hanging around these people isn't working for you, watching television, you know, whatever is in your environment that isn't working for you, you know, you become more disciplined in leaving some things out and bringing the good things in.
Yeah.
And with that self-discipline comes a new level of self-control.
Yeah.
And with that self-control comes self-respect.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is another one of the things I didn't make this original chart or equation, but I've kind of made it a little bit my own. And with that self-respect, there's a self-acceptance, which the talk that most of us have inside is extremely negative a lot of the times. And I don't know how many of us respect ourselves,
Yeah.
you know, at a very, very deep level and can really say that. And with that self-respect and acceptance, you know, then self-love is possible, which is really our birthright, I think. And what we're all looking for is, do we really love ourselves? And I mean, through the practices that I've talked about, these are tangible things that you feel inside of you. It's not something that you think about. I mean, thinking about things is one thing, but we want to embody these things and really, really feel them very deeply, and not just think about them, not just read about them in a book. We all read about the mind, body, spirit connection, but we can tangibly reach out and touch that and affect that. And getting back to that equation, after self-love is usually a very deep desire to help other people achieve that and spread that love. And that's how we can positively affect society. And all of the angst and things that you spoke about in this world, I mean, if we can't take the care of ourselves to this level, how can we positively affect others, even the closest people in our family? If you're not loving yourself, can you really give love to your husband or wife or children? I mean, you can try and it's going to be there, but think of the connection, true connection that's possible with others and in our communities and everything if we're all connected with ourselves first.
I agree. And it's just like, I think we see a lot of hate trying to drive out hate.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, and we talked about today, you know, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first when the plane is having an issue, right? You take care of that. And one thing I learned along that equation and on my path is how to become compassionate with yourself. Because you said that we get in our way a lot. And I saw how much damage I was doing to myself. Not just through maybe drug abuse at some times, alcoholism at other times, and that sort of thing. But I'm talking about the self-talk and the self-judgment. And I'm crap, and why did I do this? And boy, you're just, you know, this and that. And when you can transcend that and you see what you've been doing to yourself for so long, it's, I mean, it's incredible. You have a new sense of compassion for yourself, and you know, first of all, that can't go on. That's just negative. You become more aware of that. Self-awareness comes in.
There's a loop.
There's the loop. We're back into the equation. Self-awareness comes in, and then you become more disciplined.
More disciplined, yeah.
And more controlled in the things you're putting in your body, the things you're telling yourself, right? And you have this compassion for yourself. What happens then is, now you've got true compassion. It's much easier. Once you have that in yourself, let's say I have a friend that is angry and not treating me well, but I have seen what I'm doing to myself, and I've reversed that, and I have a new awareness. But now I can see what this person is doing to themselves inside. And I know that maybe they're not acting quote unquote right towards me, but I see what they're doing to themselves. And how could I be mad at them for how they're behaving? Because I see what's going on in there. You have nothing but that's compassion. You have compassion for them. Boy, I see what this person is doing to themselves. I know what I did to myself. So how can I really be upset at what I'm seeing in front of me? It's much easier for you to meet these people where they're at and not react, not get angry. It's almost like a superpower. Anybody at that point, for the most part, can tell you whatever they want to piss you off, trigger you, all this sort of thing. And you know that it's more about them than it is about what they're saying to you.
They want that reaction.
Exactly. And you just see it. Oh, this is about you. I feel sorry for you. And not in a pity way.
Yeah.
But like, you have compassion for them. Like, and your anger, the loop stops there. They're trying to trigger you and piss you off.
Right.
But I've already been through this with myself, so I see where you're at. You're just acting out because you don't know anything any different right now. And what's going to happen? I'm not going to return this anger towards you. The vicious cycle stops. I actually am going to return compassion to you. Yeah. You're trying to get mad at me, you're calling me names, whatever it is. This is how we bridge the gap. This is how we fix the disconnect. This is how we become, first of all, connected with ourselves, and then we connect with others. And this is how we change slowly communities and societies. Is, okay, I see this person's in pain. They're living in fear. They're living in a disconnection, not only with themselves, but with everybody else. So am I really going to take what you're saying that seriously? You can't, because you know it's not them. It's all of their triggers and everything else that's coming out in this.
It's just, at what point are they going to snap out of it?
The first thing that has to happen the only chance you have is when they see you not reacting to them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only shot you got. Not everybody's going to change right away, but it can't just be, you're giving me hate speech, I'm going to keep giving it back to you.
Right.
And that's the loop we're going to be in. When I've worked on myself and I can see in you all the pain that I've gone through myself, it's like if a 6-year-old is sitting there and calling you names. You're a stupid idiot, blah, 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 blah. Are you going to engage? Are you going to start, oh, no, you know what you are? Well, it's very similar. That's where that person's at emotionally. So am I going to sit there after I know that I've cleared myself out of this and all the BS I put myself through and the pain that I was doing to my, putting myself through? Am I going to really engage this other person on that level? That's when that's when the cycle's broken, at least on a grassroots level. And for me, it has to start at that grassroots level.
Yeah, I agree.
That's how we can break the cycle. And we start by breaking the cycle with our parents, with our loved ones, because oftentimes the toughest relationships we have are with the people that are closest to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can understand where they're coming from, have compassion for them, and say, look, I know you're calling me all these names, whatever it is, you're trying to piss me off, I know it's because you're in pain and you're disconnected.
It's interesting. I don't even know how people would react to that. What if they go even deeper?
They might, but then you're onto something though too.
But all you can do is not feed into it, and like,
that's it. Sometimes it's just walking away.
right.
You know, it's not like you're going to sit there and have a therapy session with everybody that's trying to piss you off. A lot of times it's just walking away, and not reacting is the only and best thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think that's how this vicious circle, we start to break it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We start to break it, and it takes discipline and, like I said, self-awareness and work that we have to do ourselves. And that's why diving into yourself is the most important thing you can do for everybody around you as well.
Yeah.
It really is. A lot of people will say it's selfish and things like this. It's the best thing you can do for humanity is to
clean your own house before you clean someone else's house.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like I said, put your own oxygen mask on before you do it for the person next to you.
Yeah.
You know?
So as far as your program, like, we talked about, like, you know, what types of sizes you wanted to work with, but this is something that, like, everyone should know, and, like, you can only be in so many places at one time. Like, what do you foresee? And, like, but you also don't want to lose the intimacy, right? So all that. What's it gonna look like in a few years?
Well, I mean, honestly, that's a good question. I'm not going to tell you I have all the answers right now, right? I love working one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
But I want to affect as many people as I can. And so, you know, hopefully there'll be a book and stuff like that. One of the things that I'd really like to do is put a program for children together, some sort of a curriculum for kids. You know, if you start learning this stuff when you're 7 or 8 or whatever the age is, and again, there's really no belief system in my program or dogma or any of that sort of thing. So I want it to be very approachable.
I feel like it'd be a good YouTube channel.
Yes, I want to. It's something I want to do. You know, my own podcast, whatever that looks like.
I think it'd be. It's just like it's so valuable that the masses should have it. They should have access to it. And those that can want to go deeper and have the means to will probably reach out.
Yeah. No, I would love that. And you know, it is. This is a human thing. I mean, one of the documents I wrote is the art and science of becoming human or being human. Mm-hmm. This is just who we are, and it's controlling ourselves at a very deep level is what it all boils down to.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
you know?
I don't know what time. I feel like we've been in it for a little bit.
Yeah.
But, like, the absolute takeaway, I think it's going to revolve around breathwork.
Breathwork.
Right? If it can.
Moving.
I think, right? So something like, I want to give, like, something tangible to people. So if they feel like the control is slipping.
Yes.
Is there a certain, like, not necessarily with movement, but like something that they can do themselves that
Absolutely.
can bring it back into their grasp?
Yes. I think the quickest way to affect your state of being is through the breath.
Okay.
And when we talk about stress, anger, sadness, any of these charged emotions, we're talking about our state of being. Right? Mm-hmm. Very simple. And so controlling that state of being through the breath. And just an example, if we're at home, we can lay down, put a pillow under our neck, put a pillow under our knees, so our spine is straight. If you're not at home, that's fine. In your office chair, while you're, in your driver's seat of your car, passenger, airplane, whatever. Just try to make sure your spine is as straight as possible, comfortable, not tense. And what I would tell people to do, and if you only have a minute, this is still very effective. But if you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the case may be, we can make a pretty big impact in a short period of time. But nasal breathing only, you're going to just start breathing in through the nose. And then concentrate a little more on the exhale. So you want a complete exhale, and you pretend like you have a bobber in your chest, and on the exhale, that bobber is going to go down. And on the inhale, that bobber is going to come up. Very simple. And what you're going to do is slowly, 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 that bobber is just going to get longer and extend. Your inhale is going to get a little longer, and the exhale is going to get a little longer, and it's also going to get slower. And we're going to slow that breathing down. And a lot of people teach that you're holding the breath at the top, holding the breath at the bottom. Nothing really needs to happen off the bat, but you're just nasal breathing, and every inhale is getting a little higher, and every exhale is getting a little lower and taking a little more time. Whereas even a goal might be a 20-second inhale and a 20-second exhale, where one inhale takes 20 or 30 seconds and one exhale takes 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you're not adding tension. You're not trying to take these huge breaths. What do they do in some yoga or meditation classes? You sit down and they say, everybody take a big inhale, and everyone goes, and they add a bunch of tension to their body. And so, concentrate a little more on the exhale, expelling all of the air in your lungs without adding tension, and watch how nice and full that inhale gets soon after that. And just lengthen that breath out and slow it down, and you will affect your state of being. You'll slowly come out of the sympathetic or the emergency nervous system into the parasympathetic. And when you do that, you also slowly change the drugs that are being made in your body from inflammatory stress drugs, cortisol, adrenaline, to more of the, for lack of a better word, the happy, good feeling drugs, serotonin, oxytocin, things like that. And the strongest drugs on the planet are the ones that we make in our body, for good or bad, and we can control the biology and the chemistry of our body just through that breath. And we can do it in other ways, but the breath is the easiest way to do it. And we can do that very quickly wherever we are, just by slowing our breath down, breathing in and out through the nose, and making that breath as long as possible.
Yeah, I love that.
Simple.
I love how it feels more approachable than Wim Hof. And not that Wim Hof is hard, but you hear people dying, passing out and dying and whatnot, and they put themselves in dangerous situations. But I feel like it's more of an extreme version of this. Like you can get great results by doing this.
Absolutely. And one of the problems or issues that I see with a lot of people teaching the breath is what we're really trying to do, even with that simple breath that I just taught, is we're trying to come out of the thinking mind and more into a body consciousness, where what will happen, and it might take a month, it might take 6 weeks, everybody's different, but if you practice that breath for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes on a daily basis or semi-regularly, what will happen is you will switch from thinking about breathing to your consciousness will switch to being in that breath. And it's a very tough thing to explain, because it's not a product of language or a product of the intellect, what we're talking about right now. It's a feeling. It's a product of experience. And if you haven't experienced what I'm talking about before, being one with the breath, it's like trying to describe what the color red is to somebody that only sees in black and white. It's pretty much impossible. Or what any color is to somebody that only sees in black and white. And so that is a shift in consciousness, which is what we're all really looking for, though. And most of what we're looking for is not a product of the intellect. It's experiential. It's a product of experience and of feeling and of being. And if you practice just that simple breath long enough, you will go from thinking about that breath to being in that breath. And the issue that I have, and many of these different types of breath work are very beneficial. But if you dive straight into that type of breath work, you most of the time will miss what I'm talking about. And now you're just doing other...
Just do.
You're doing, and you're thinking about doing, and you miss...
There's so much to think about.
Yes, and you miss switching from being up into the mind to being in your whole system to just being.
Yeah.
You miss that. I've asked some breathwork teachers, are you familiar with being in your breath, being one with your breath? And they're not. But they're teaching very advanced breathing techniques, but I think they've missed the whole point of what this is all about. You know? And it's like trying to drive a Ferrari if you are don't even know how to ride a bike. You're missing the whole point. And again, we're can get very stuck in achieving and trying to do these advanced things and doing things for the ego, and I'm doing this fancy breath work. But if you haven't experienced being one with the breath, that's where the gold is. That's where the gold is. And I think it's Joe Madden, the former manager of the Cubs, and it wasn't his phrase, but he kind of made it famous in his managing the Cubs. Do simple better. Slow down, do simple better. And like I was talking about Ashtanga, they won't teach any breath work to practitioners until they become very, very advanced at the poses and breathing in the poses. And because of what I'm talking about, they want to keep it very simple. And I mean, you could do this one simple, piece of breath work for a year and find every time new things that you're finding in your body that really are really tough for me to describe, but new freedom, new awareness. And like I said, and talk about stress relief without, pharmaceuticals and everything. You're producing your own stress relieving pharmaceuticals by doing this breath work and getting out of the sympathetic or emergency nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system. You're producing your own drugs that are extremely powerful, and you'll learn what true stress relief in a very healthy way is. Yeah.
Cool. That's all I had, Phil.
Yeah. Well, this was great. I appreciate it, Victor.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you more, too.
I would love to.
Yeah. We're going to do some psoas release next time, I think.
But is that manual therapy, or how does that, or just movements?
Nope, it's just movements. It's something I can teach you in one session, and you'll have it for the rest of your life.
I was struggling with the hip stuff today.
Yes, no worries, no worries. And the psoas release will, will really help you with that hip stuff. So it's something I can teach you in a half an hour, and you'll have it for the rest of your life.
Oh, my
God. Yep. But thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Not sure how long this episode was.
Me neither.
But we'll, if you guys want to hit up Phil, your Instagram for now?
Yeah, Instagram for now, RockOnPhilly33. Yeah. Or you can, I'm getting the business components of this all set up. I wanted to install it in my life and put my program together. Feel
free to DM Phil on anytime on IG.
Or innerfirealways@gmail.com.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys. I'll see you guys in the next episode.